A special thanks to our Man School sponsor, Phone Plus. Business telephone service, custom branding, marketing, quality, security, stability, guaranteed savings. PremierPhonePlus.com.
I was here 2 years ago, and I could not be more happy to be back. And I'll tell you, one of the mantras I live by, it's not what you do, it's who you do it with. And there is no place I'd rather be on a Saturday morning with a bunch of brothers in Christ. And I love this mantra here, dudes, trying to get it right. So I shared a number of stories last time, and I have a number of new ones that will be under the banner of Sing Second. But before we do talk about any stories, I want you guys to get to know me a little bit better. And the first thing I got to say, when I was younger, I would have never envisioned being here. And this is a picture of my wife, Kelly, and I, and this is very symbolic, incredibly symbolic of our relationship, because you haven't even heard the story yet and you're already laughing. So here's why it's symbolic. So, back in college, I was a hockey player. I wasn't a bad guy, but I was absolutely not living a godly life. I was wild, I was crazy, I was really living life for the party. Now compare that to my wife. Kelly accepted Christ at a very young age, and she had some incredibly godly women that poured into her life, and they would pray with her, and they encouraged her to pray and wait. Pray and wait. And they also recommended that she make a list, literally make a list of the qualities she wanted in her future husband. So Kelly thought she was going to marry a missionary. Instead, she got me, the original wild child here. But let me tell you an incredible story about God's divine intervention on how we got together, because this was, Chad, the summer between our junior and senior year at West Point. So my parents were moving from Pittsburgh to Knoxville, and I was home helping them move. And to take a break from moving, my dad, my brother, my grandfather, and I went out to play a round of golf. And if Kelly was here, she would be embarrassed telling this story, because a sorority sister of hers talked her into the summer job. She thought she was going to be catering banquets and weddings at this nice club in Knoxville. Turns out she was driving the beverage cart. Kelly was driving the beer cart. So that was her summer job. And I was sitting next to my younger brother. And Kelly came driving over the hill, and she got close, and I elbowed him, and I said, "Wow, check her out." And John, being the older brother, I said, "Watch this. I'm going to show you the moves." And the first time she came around, I didn't say much. I just gave her a big tip. And the next time she came around, I tried to ask her out, and she said, "Well, I'm leaving tomorrow." And I said, "To go where?" And she said, "To New York." And I said, "To do what?" And she said, "An internship at West Point." And I was like, it's going to be my senior year. Oh. And she was in uniform. She worked in the Department of Physical Education, so much to my disappointment, was highly discouraged from dating. But that didn't stop me. I would still go the long way around to class to flirt and say hi. And in December, she went back to the University of Tennessee to finish her senior year. And you think back in 1993, you know what? Were these around back then? I mean, we literally had zero communication. And I chose aviation as my branch and went back home to Knoxville. I had 2 months before flight school started, and I was looking for a gym to join. And there were 5 of them around where my parents lived. The one I picked, the very first time I went, bumped into Kelly in the parking lot. She was teaching aerobics. I think God said, "You missed it the first time. I'm going to give you one more chance." And 5 months later, we're engaged. And it is incredible, because in August, we will celebrate anniversary number 32. Yeah. Anniversary number 32. See, Chad wasn't clapping because he knows me. Everyone else clapping doesn't know me that well, because I am a lot to put up with. And I highlight this story because it was ultimately Kelly that introduced me to Jesus. That is how I learned about Christ, and I still fall short. I still, like all of you, are a sinner. But my life, ever since committing my life to Christ, has been different ever since. And it was this angel Kelly that God brought into my life. So let me continue here, because God, family, country is how the priorities line up for me. So over that 32-year journey, Kelly and I have 4 amazing kids. So we have two daughters, 28 and 25. We have a 22-year-old son. He's a junior at West Point. I played hockey back at West Point. He's an Army hockey player like his dad, just much better than his dad. And we still have one at home. We have our youngest son we adopted from Ethiopia. And I want to share one number with you, and that's 150 million. 150 million, and that is a staggering number. And what that number represents is the number of orphans in the world. The number of kids who don't have a mom or dad, who don't have a loving home like many of us grew up in or try and provide for our kids. And Kelly and I heard that number, and I mean, we were just heartbroken. We were shocked. I mean, couldn't imagine that was so large, but we thought, with such a big number, I mean, what can we do? How can we have an impact? And we talked and prayed about it and said we can't adopt them all, but we can adopt one. And that's where it started in 2012. And here's the very first picture of our son Eskel. And I will tell you, we saw that photo, and I mean, we cried. We absolutely wept. We just knew. We absolutely knew that God meant for Eskel to be our son. And a quick funny story, you see his shirt there? See how messy it is? We thought, oh, how sad. He's probably been wearing that shirt for a week. And I will tell you, after getting him home and after one family meal, that's one day. He is the messiest eater you have ever seen in your life. But here's a more recent, photo of Eskel. He is now 16. And I will tell you, Dennis, you've met him. I mean, he is just an amazing young man. And here's what Eskel taught me. I mean, the incredible impact you can have, that one person can have, if you truly put the interest of others first. So, to have a little bit of fun here, I want to ask this question. So I know there's a lot of sports fans here, what is the greatest rivalry in all of college sports? So go ahead, shout it out. Army-Navy. I heard a few Army-Navy. Of course, I like that one. Other ones? Duke Carolina, basketball. What else? I've heard some Iron Bowl. So I did my research, and there were really 4 that bubbled at the top of the list. If you're a Big Ten fan, there is no bigger game, and they literally call it the game between Ohio State and Michigan. I heard a couple people call this one, we're an SEC country, so the Iron Bowl between Auburn and Alabama. I mean, an incredible fierce competition. If you're from Texas and Oklahoma, there's no game you look forward to more every year than the Red River rivalry. And I heard at least one basketball fan here. If you are more of a basketball than a football, it's all about the Battle of the Blues between North Carolina and Duke. And I am, of course, biased, and I heard a number of my fellow grads share it here. But I will tell you, there is no greater rivalry in college sports than the Army-Navy game. I mean, it truly is America's game. And there's really 2 reasons why. One is, out of all those rivalries on the list, this is the only one where everyone playing is willing to die for everyone watching. And I'll say that one more time to let it really sink in. This is the only game where everyone playing is willing to die for everyone watching. I mean, it really puts in perspective the significance of that game. The other one is this fun tradition, sing second. And many of you are probably saying, what in the world is sing second? And to compare and contrast, so all those other rivalries out there, usually what happens at the end of the game, when the winning team, at the end of the game, the winning team's fans, they storm the field, they tear down the goalposts, and then they taunt the opposing team as they trudge in misery back to their locker room. It's different with the Army-Navy game. What happens is, after a hard-fought battle of blood, sweat, and tears, the losing team, not the winning team, the losing team sings their alma mater first. And if you're wondering, that seems odd to sing second. I mean, there's a lot of, heated rivalry in that game, but, deep down, there's a lot of deep-rooted respect for our brothers in arms. And the whole idea of sing second, after you respectfully listen to your opponent sing their alma mater, you get to sing second. And that's a symbol of victory and respect. And I get goosebumps every time I think about the tradition of sing second. I mean, it truly is America's game. And as much as I love that tradition around sing second, I have found that the idea around sing second is also a great way to live your life. And as I look back over my career, the people I respect most, the ones that were incredibly successful, they absolutely wanted to win. They wanted to win at everything they did, but more important, they wanted to do it the right way. They would put the interest of others first. They would treat everybody with dignity and respect, even in face of disagreement. I mean, it was just the whole mindset that they lived in. And I'm going to share a number of stories today on my personal journey that will start to tie on this. And it really starts to touch on these 10 words. These are 10 words that have deep impact and meaning for me. I mentioned about God, family, country, so my foundation and my faith in my family. We're also going to talk about my belief about the importance of mission and purpose. And so often, if you want to accomplish something that's really hard, I mean, the importance of grit and perseverance. I'll also talk a little bit about our brand and the importance for us with quality and innovation. And then this really is the most important one for us. You know, this is the opportunity that each and every single one of us has to leave an impact, to have an impact, and leave a legacy. So let me start here. So Chad, it is so great for you to be here. You know, all the way back in 1993 is when Chad and I, walked through that 4 years together at West Point. And if I'm being honest, it was hard. John, you know it. I mean, it was a hard, challenging 4 years. But it was so foundational in my life. I mean, the idea about service and, committing to something higher than yourself. The importance of mission. And I heard, words that started to mean something like duty, honor, and country. Just, incredibly foundational in my life. So I also chose aviation as my brand. So I spent a year down in LA. And for those not familiar, that's Lower Alabama. Spent a year in Lower Alabama learning how to fly helicopters. And I have two stories I want to share. So they are both ironically on the same flight. So I was assigned to the Army's National Training Center, Fort Irwin, out in the high desert of California. So halfway between Las Vegas and LA. And I was on a night mission with CW5 Leon Whitehurst. I was a young second lieutenant with less than 100 flight hours. And Leon was one of Army Aviation's finest. He literally had over 10,000 hours. And we landed at Nellis, and we were about ready to take off, and he said, "Sir, what do you think if I requested the strip transition?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And we took off, and we flew right down the Vegas Strip. We went right past the MGM, right past the Mirage, right past the Stratosphere, that rotating restaurant. And I remember looking at Leon saying, "That guy's having a steak. And it's medium rare." I mean, that's how close we were. I mean, just truly an incredible experience. And we started to, continued on our flight 150 miles back to Fort Irwin. And unlike the bright neon lights of Vegas, if you've ever made that drive from Vegas to LA, you have a good visual in your mind. It's desert terrain with mountains on every side. And unlike those bright neon lights, there was no moonlight, and the little bit of starlight was covered by unusual cloud cover. So we're cruising along at 10,000 feet, and we're just talking, all of a sudden, the engine stopped. And I mean, I'm a young second lieutenant, new pilot, and I mean, I'm freaking out, and all I could envision was running into a mountain. And never thought I would have the opportunity to be a dad, thought I would lose my bride, and miraculously, a few seconds later, the engine stabilized, and I mean, I was still, losing it. We're going along, and I still remember this for the next hour. Cool as a cucumber, Leon Whitehurst walked me through what would have happened if we would have had a true engine failure. And I still remember what he said. He said, "Sir, this is why I'm so hard on you, because there's some things in life you train until you get it right. In our line of work, you train until you can't get it wrong. You train until you can't get it wrong." And Leon was an incredible mentor to me and so many other junior pilots out there. And I will tell you, I hope each and every one of you has somebody like Leon in your life that you can turn to when you need a mentor. So, another question I'm often asked, "Well, Dean, I heard being an entrepreneur is stressful. What best prepared you for the journey of being an entrepreneur?" And hands down, it was the Army Special Forces Ranger School. And if you're not familiar, there's a lot of military doctrine and tactics at Ranger School, but at its core, it's a leadership course. And what they do is deprive you of everything you think you need to survive, namely food and sleep. and then put you in incredibly stressful situations. And on day one, there were 340 of us. And if you make it straight through in 72 days, you live on 1 meal a day and 2 to 3 hours sleep a night. And then they crank up the physical, emotional, mental stress, all with a goal to get you to break you down. And I got to tell you, it worked. It worked. 340 of us on day one. This is a graduation photo. There were only 70 of us. And this was just an incredible day of celebration for me, and during such a enduring challenge. And let me show you a close-up picture. Do I look happy? I mean, it was miserable. I mean, it was absolutely awful. But I will tell you, there's two things that I learned that, you know what? Life can be hard. Life can be incredibly difficult. And my being a flight suit wearing aviator, I had no business being at Ranger School, let alone graduating and making it straight through. But the only reason, or the primary reason I made it through, was this gentleman right here. So what happens on day one? They assign you a Ranger buddy. And my Ranger buddy 30 years ago was Marine Corps Infantry Sergeant Roy Backey. And we made a pact on day one. We said, no matter how hard it gets, no matter how difficult it is, we're going to have each other's back. We're going to be there always in need, and we absolutely will not quit. And it is really neat because 30 years later, Roy and I still keep in touch. And just like, you need that mentor, you know what? Everyone needs a Roy Backey in their life for when things are really hard, you need someone to turn to. The other story is about teamwork. So there's 4 phases of Ranger School, and this was the final jungle phase. And I was assigned to be the commander for a midnight ambush. And what adds to the challenge of this, 2 days prior to that assignment for me, somebody in our ranks stole some MREs, a meal ready to eat. And you can imagine when you're living on 1 meal a day, what a big deal that is. So the Ranger instructors for 2 nights straight kept us up all night trying to flush out the perpetrator. And here it is now, night 3, that going on literally 0 sleep. And I'm the commander leading 100, Rangers. So my adrenaline's pumping and I'm fired up. I'm like, I got to lead from the front. I've got to go ahead and lead by example. So we get the midnight ambush set up. And at midnight, there's no contact. And I say, you know what? I've got to check in with everybody. So I traversed the whole line, went back and forth, checked in everyone, got back down in the prone position. You know what? 12:30, no enemy contact. I checked the line with everyone again, checked in, make sure everyone was doing well. 1 o'clock, still no contact. Repeated the same exercise. Then right before 1:30, I was getting ready to do the next check. The Ranger instructor, the senior Ranger instructor, came up to me, and I was laying in the prone position like everyone else, and he asked me to get to one knee, and he said, Ranger Wegner, that was impressive. One of the best ambush setups I've ever seen. And he looked back at me, he looked at me again, he said, Ranger Wegner, you have failed. You are a no-go. And I looked at him in disbelief. And he said, you probably want to know why. And he said, listen. Shh. He said, listen. And we sat there quietly, and all we heard was snoring. We walked the ambush line. There wasn't a single Ranger student awake. And he said, here's the lesson I want you to learn. He goes, I got to really admire your hustle and your drive. But you're not Superman. Nobody is. You know what? This is all about teamwork. Instead of trying to keep everyone awake and keep everyone motivated yourself, you should have relied on your first sergeant. You should have relied on your platoon leader, your platoon sergeant. This is a team exercise. You've got to learn to embrace your team. And that lesson is something I have embraced, my entire life. The importance of teamwork. And think back to our faith. Jesus, did he do it alone? How many disciples did he have? Right there, Jesus, role model. You know what? Life is all about teamwork. He had 12 disciples. So let me continue here. When we launched Authentically American, I really questioned, how do we have an impact? How do we make the work that we do meaningful? And I really wrestled with that because, Chad, I remember back on May 29th, 1993, raising our right hand and committing to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And that really meant something. And I can't tell you the countless incredible men and women I served with that really meant something as well, knowing they were serving this great nation of ours. And that's what I really wrestled with. How are we going to have something for our business that is truly meaningful? And watching a podcast from this gentleman, Simon Sinek, made it all come together, because his mantra is start with why. If you have an organization, you have a business, you have a charity that you're building, be very clear in what your mission is. Be very clear in those values and what you stand for. And I wish the entire Authentically American team was here, because you would hear them echo the same sentiments that I do. If you go to our website, you will see that the heart of our mission is our passion for creating American jobs. We just happen to be in the apparel business. So it's interesting. I left the Army in 2000, and I tell everybody now, I'm a veteran and an entrepreneur, but when I left the Army in 2000, I couldn't even spell entrepreneur. Had no idea this world existed, and reason being, had an amazing dad growing up, and for 30 years, he worked for a Fortune 500 company. And that's what most of his friends, that's what most of our neighbors did, so that's the only world I knew. So I worked for Procter & Gamble and Mars, and if you're not familiar with those names, I'm sure as you look up here, you're familiar with brands like Crest and Tide and M&M's. And I will tell you, I'm incredibly thankful for that experience, because they're both world-class marketing and branding companies, and learned some tremendous insights into building a brand. But one of the things that drives me is wanting to know I make a difference. And in an $80 billion company, just felt like a cog in the wheel. And I really wrestled with, in such a big organization, am I truly making a difference? But when you can't spell entrepreneur, I didn't think I had it in me to start a business from scratch. So I entered the entrepreneurial ranks through acquisition. And I will guarantee you, it's a business none of you have ever heard of. But if you've been to a Titans game, you've been to a Preds game, and they play the national anthem, and you see the military holding their colors in their fancy dress uniforms, that's the business I bought. A government contractor that produces dress uniforms for the military. So we produce thousands of uniforms every week for Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. And one of the things I learned was the shocking history of the apparel industry, which, to give you an idea how rare American made is, when Chad and I graduated back in '93, over 50% was made in the US. Today it's 3%. 3% is all that's made here. And I love this country, and I thought, I want to win more contracts and we'll create more jobs, but I was rather naive back then and didn't really understand government contracting, because it's primarily, in the government contracting business, a bidding process. So if John and I are bidding on a contract, and John had it before and I won, in essence, John's job's transferred to me, and net, there's no real job creation. And that was that light bulb moment for me that said, what if? What if, instead of being a government contractor, what if we built a brand? And I thought back to the days of Crest and Tide and M&M's, and I also thought, what if, instead of what 97% of brands do and chase cheap labor overseas, what if we made the intentional choice to produce right here? And that's where it started in 2017, from a blank sheet of paper with a vision to build this iconic American brand that's truly American made. And I gotta be honest, I'm exhausted. I mean, it is absolutely the hardest thing I've ever done. And not that I thought it was gonna be easy, but I had no idea what I was going to get into. But as exhausted as I am even more energized, because it's something I truly believe in, something I'm passionate about, the opportunity to change an industry and create an impact. And it's all about passion. Let me share one more story about passion. We are fortunate to live in Music City, in Nashville, and hear some incredible artists. And one of my favorite artists growing up was Charlie Daniels, and his iconic song, A Devil Went Down to Georgia. And in 2020, Charlie sadly passed away at 83. But in 2019, my wife Kelly and I were at a fundraiser, and we were fortunate to sit at the head table, and we were sitting there with Charlie and Hazel, and I remember walking up, and Charlie was sitting down. He is just an incredibly gracious human being, and I remember Charlie just literally struggling to try and get up to go ahead and greet us and say hello, and we were sitting down, and I remember looking at the program, and I said, Charlie's gonna perform. My favorite song, no less. I'm like, how is this going to be even possible? He could hardly walk, he could hardly stand up. And I will tell you, when he got up on stage, it was like electricity filled his body, and every ache, every pain, he forgot he was jumping around on stage like a young man. And later that night, I talked to Charlie, and I said, Charlie, how was that even possible? I mean, you were really struggling. He said, Dean, I will tell you, at a young age, I found what I truly love. I found what I'm passionate about. When I'm on stage and performing and playing music, that is my happy place. And he said, that is what I hope every single person finds, and that's what I hope each and every one of you find, is that something that you're truly passionate about, something you truly believe, because then there will never be another day in your life that you work. So when we launched our business, one of the things I really wrestled with was, how do we make everyone aware of our brand? And I remember back in the P&G and Mars days, I mean, we literally had Super Bowl ad budgets. My marketing budget is about this big. And I was really wrestling with, well, how do we make this idea come to life? Because we got a clear vision on our brand, but we have no money. So the page we tried to play was the whole idea around earned media and getting as much free press and PR as we can. And I've got to tell you, I have been blown away because it has been an incredible blessing. We've been on Fox and Friends many times. We've been on MSNBC and Forbes magazine. Every single media outlet here we've been on, and it has been an incredible blessing. And I want to share one story about the very first national media appearance. And this was in 2018. And to set the context, this was the time, if you remember, that Nike launched their Kaepernick campaign. And there was a whole debate across the nation. Do you stand for the national anthem or do you kneel? And I remember getting that call and learning that there's going to be 2 million people watching, and I'm going to be sitting on the curvy couch. And I was nervous. I'm like, there's all this going on in the country. 2 million people are watching. And I did what most every nervous entrepreneur would do. I over-prepared. I mean, I literally spent 100 hours preparing. And let me show you the last minute of this segment. So,
you're not going to pick up many pieces of apparel that has made in the USA. These products, every one of them, across the board, are all made in this country.
But what about a
by
company
American
like
workers.
Nike saying, we're going to market the idea that you don't have to stand for the flag?
Well, I don't agree with that.
I sense that.
I don't agree with that at all. It's unfortunate that we're in that situation, or that the NFL is.
And I believe, good or bad, we are defined by the choices we make. And we're being very intentional in the choices we make. And, the simple thing about stand, I also am an American, believe in the Constitution, and, freedom of speech, freedom of expression. So I don't need to talk about what everyone else is doing. What I can talk about is what we do. And a simple thing about stand, my background with our family, when we're talking to the kids and somebody walks in, what do we ask them to do? We ask them to stand and shake hands and look them in the eye, and that's a sign of respect.
Yeah.
Military, when a commanding officer, when your superior walks in, you stand up. And it's not about what anyone else is doing. This is the choices that we're making. And our position is, if you're a business, your values are authentically American-like, we want you to call us.
All right. And listen, if you'd like more information about their products, go to authenticallyamerican.us.
I will tell you, all right. I know there's a lot of God-fearing people in this room who love this country. So I will be honest, and I will tell you, that moment changed everything for our business. Not because 2 million people were watching, not because we were on national TV, because that was a moment where we were put on the spotlight and we had to make a decision on who we are and what we believe in. And when you're put under the spotlight, you don't have an opportunity to go ahead and make it up on the go. I mean, it's built on that foundation that was there early. And the intentional choice we've made from day one, we want to be a brand that celebrates patriotism. We want to be a brand that believes in the American worker, and we want to be a brand that honors our American heroes. And we very passionately believe about serving and giving back. And think about our faith journey. We are absolutely going to be tested. I mean, Satan's going to be there, and he's going to test each and every one of you. And at that point, you don't get to make it up. And Dennis, that's why I love you hosting here, because one of the ways that you're ready when those tests come, I mean, you've got a band of brothers. You've got a bunch of dudes trying to stand beside you and hold you accountable. I mean, if you got that daily ritual of prayer and devotion, I mean, it's things like that that really prepare you to go ahead and be ready for when you're tested. So, quick story. So, day one when we launched Authentically American, I thought everyone was like me. I thought everyone was like Dennis. Either a veteran and had served this great nation of ours, or incredibly patriotic, and I thought everyone would love our brand just because of how unique we would be when only 3% is American made. And I've got to tell you, I learned two things. One, most people don't know, literally don't know where their shirt is made, which I'm actually okay with, because that gave birth to our tagline, Where is yours made? And it's designed to be provocative. So Mark, tomorrow morning when you put on your favorite polo, I want you to look at the tag and be shocked and disappointed when you see made in China, when you see anything made in the US. But here's the other point I learned. Most people don't care. They flat out just don't care. And for a while I was angry. I was really upset. I'm like, how can you not care? Our arch rival in this world is China, and that's where 40% of the world's apparel. How can you not care that you're putting on a shirt that's made in China? And now that I'm over my anger issues, I've embraced that as a business. We can't be all things to all people. We don't have a Super Bowl ad budget. We don't have, the resources. So this is a quick story on something I learned about one group that does care. So how many of you are familiar with Tunnel to Towers? It is an incredible organization, and here's the quick backstory. So it was birthed out of 9/11, and an incredibly courageous fireman named Stephen Siller. He was actually off duty on 9/11, and he heard everything going on the radio on the towers about everything happening, and Stephen wanted to make a difference, so he tried to hop in his truck and drive, but of course he couldn't get through. But that didn't stop Stephen. He put on 60 pounds of fireman gear and ran 5 miles. Ran 5 miles all the way back to the tower and courageously saved countless people's lives. But tragically in the process, he paid the ultimate sacrifice and lost his life. And for years and years, what they would do, there'd be a group of firemen sitting around a card table, and they would hold a 5-mile run every year in Stephen's honor. And about 10, 15 years ago, they got really serious. And they're all now a $500 million charity. And if you're not familiar, what they do, so if you're a police officer, for example, and you're killed in the line of duty, what they do is they pay off your mortgage so your family never again has to worry where you're going to live. It is incredible impact they're having. And in 2022, I was introduced to Larry Olson, their chief marketing officer. And Larry and I were having a virtual call, and we were getting to know each other, and I knew they ordered a ton of apparel. And I asked him our tagline question. I said, Larry, I know you order a ton of apparel. Where is yours made? And he looked at me very confidently and said, Dean, we serve veterans and first responders. I got to believe my team is ordering American made. He said, but I want to check. And he went running to the back room. He came back and he said, slammed his hand on the table. He said, doggone it, I can't believe it. Everything I found is made in China. Everything is made in Vietnam, and that just does not feel right given who we serve. And he said, I want to run a big test. We're going to order polos, t-shirts, socks, hoodies, quarter zips, all kinds of stuff to go ahead and test your quality. And 3 months later, Larry called me up and said, Dean, everyone absolutely loves it. It's soft, it's comfortable, and equally important, we told them the why behind this decision. We told them that we wanted to work with a veteran-owned company. We were committed to American made, given the veterans and first responders we serve. But Larry said, Dean, there's one problem. We've got a ton of inventory, and it's going to take us a long time to work through that. And Larry called me up 6 months later and said, Dean, you won't believe what I just got in the mail. A proud veteran, donated our monthly minimum level, so we sent him one of our iconic red hats. That veteran opened it up, saw a made in China tag, he cut it into shreds and sent it back to me with one note that said, shame on you. Shame on you. And Larry said, Dean, this is why we want to work with you. We serve veterans and first responders, and an important thing you do when you work with charities and nonprofits, you provide your goods and services at cost. And that moment from 2022, they are now one of our largest clients. And although everyone does not care about American made, we found the veteran does. And that changed my whole mindset. We were talking sports. Anyone remember this movie? What was the iconic line from this movie? If you build it, they will come. If you build it, they will come. It's a lie. It's flat out a lie. It is absolutely not true. If you go back and you feel our stuff, it's soft, it's comfortable, everyone loves it. And my thought, everyone was coming just because we had something unique. But I will tell you, if you're in sales and marketing, you know the importance of those engines for a business, because I found out no one was coming. No one was coming. And when you've got a small marketing budget, that doesn't work. So Kip, you're a business owner, you know this. I've had to change my whole mindset, not having a big marketing budget. We've had to embrace that we can't be all things to all people. So we've realized that even if nobody cares, if a small percentage does, that's still an opportunity for us to build a business. So now 90% of our revenue is custom. We serve thousands of businesses, and many of them are veteran owned. Many of them are patriotic or have American workers. So I've stopped trying to go ahead and chase everybody. It's really about understanding who that target customer is. So the riches are in the niches is my favorite mantra. So many of you probably recognize this guy. And Dennis, don't get nervous. We're not going to get crazy politics here.
I recognize the socks.
Yeah. Yep. You can notice the socks. So you remember that appearance I showed you? So I actually met Pete backstage. And that was, in 2018. So back then, he was the host of Fox and Friends Weekend. Now he's our Secretary of War. And I gave Pete, Mark, you notice, these fun pair of patriotic socks. And you can see what he was wearing. So a year later, I was invited back. And this time, Pete was interviewing me. And he's like, Dean, it is so great to see you again. I still have the socks you gave me. They're my favorite pair. I said, Pete, please say that on national TV. And he did, and you can imagine the spike in traffic and sales. And what he said, or actually more importantly, what he didn't say actually taught me an important lesson, because he didn't mention anything about them being American made. He said they're so soft, so comfortable, they have this fun, patriotic design being a mismatch. But when you have an experience like that, you want to learn more, and you'll read the fine print that says designed in Nashville and made in North Carolina. And we proudly produce in 11 states. So instead of China, Bangladesh, and Vietnam, we produce in states like North Carolina, and Texas, and Georgia, so 11 states. So this story relates directly to SingSecond. So before I share, let me get a pulse on the audience here. So when it comes to America's game, when it comes to the Army's Navy game, how many root for the Army team? Let me hear you. How many root for Navy? I don't like those guys, I will tell you. Sir, what was your name? Can you come on up here real quick?
Come on, Bill.
The Navy fan here, one of you, come on up here. I need a little help here.
I like you to give you a chair.
Bill, if you want to come right up here. Is Bill a good sport, by the way? I should have. Yeah. So Bill, if you can hold that. So this is mine and Chad's and John's favorite shirt. And you'll see it's incredibly soft and comfortable. So beyond that, it has a special innovation, our sweat activated. And Bill, you said you're a Navy fan.
I am.
Smile, Bill.
I'm sorry. So let me spray this here. And you'll see a hidden message. Can you see what that says, Bill? He may be a little hard of reading, so let me make it a little bit bigger for him. What does that say, Bill?
Beat Navy.
Did you say it a little bit louder?
Beat Navy.
There we go. How about that? You are a good sport.
Do you have a Navy one?
My wife made sure we don't discriminate, so we do have a Go Navy version. So if you go to our website, Bill, so thank you for being a good sport. So
Really?
Put your hands together for Bill. So here's where I highlight this, because this reinforces the idea of SingSecond and America's game and the rivalry. But for us, with 90% of our revenue being custom, this is completely custom. So whatever you want printed, whatever you want magically to appear, we can do. So we've done hundreds of custom designs. So our businesses, instead of Beat Navy, they will have their values, their mission statement magically appear, reinforcing the value of hard work. And that's what I love, because it is a fun way with our product just to reinforce that incredibly valuable life lesson. So Troy mentioned this earlier. So today absolutely is not a sales event. It is all about dudes getting together and celebrating Christ and how do we go ahead and build each other up. But we believe in giving back and serving, and one way we do that is about having two price tiers. So if you're a for-profit business like Pepsi or J&J, you pay full price. If you're a charity or nonprofit like Tunnel to Towers, we do it at cost. But the other way we do that, when I'm invited to speak, we just bring a few products with us. And with 4th of July coming up, we bought a few fun patriotic ones. And what we will do, Troy mentioned donating all of our profit, and to be very specific, our margin roughly is about 20%. So we will donate 20% of sales today, back to the incredible, engage, engage organization, because you heard the story. I mean, they're having an incredible impact. So, there is zero pressure to sell because we're not making any money on it. But for us, this is just another opportunity for us to serve and give back. So, two last things. So let me ask you this. How many of you believe in the American worker? I mean, truly believe in the American worker. I mean, I would ask you to do this. You remember our tagline, "Where is yours made?" Next time you're shopping, take a moment, look at the tag, and not just on apparel, look at everything. And sadly, it's not possible all the time, but there are times when you can make that choice. And I will tell you, that very intentional choice you make, that will have an impact. It will create American jobs, and more importantly, it will make us a stronger nation. So, next thing is Sing Second. It is a great college tradition with America's game. But like I said, more importantly, I believe it is just a way to live your life. So I'm hoping one of the stories I shared will help the idea of Sing Second come to life. I hope that each and every one of you find that passion that you truly believe in, and then on that journey of pursuing your passion, you do it right. You treat everyone with dignity and respect, and you treat others the way they want to be treated. So last thing for me, so I had mentioned these 10 words, and Mark, in your email you said one thing to take away. So if I was to leave you with one word, it would be this. It would be intentional. And nothing in life happens by accident. If you want to build a business, you want to build a career, you want to build a family, you truly want to have an impact and leave a legacy, you have to be deliberate. You have to be purposeful. You have to be intentional in everything you do, because that is the only way impact happens. It's by being intentional and being focused. And Troy, I got to thank you for the invitation to be back here, because there's no place I'd rather be than right here. So guys, thank you very much. It was great to be here.
A special thanks to our Man School sponsor, Phone Plus. Business telephone service, custom branding, marketing, quality, security, stability, guaranteed savings. PremierPhonePlus.com